So you've got to think really carefully around, what's the ladder that you're climbing? As they say, is the ladder even up against the right building? Because if you climb it and you get success with that model, you might realize the whole time you were on the wrong ladder or the wrong building. So
today we're going to be tackling a question that we hear a lot from aspiring entrepreneurs, because people are often wondering, should you sell low ticket products for £1 or high ticket products that could be worth up to £185,000? It's an important consideration when you're getting started in dropshipping, and your decision now will change the trajectory of your business. So, Lewis, we'll still get started with the basics. What are the main differences between low ticket and high ticket dropshipping?
Yeah, it's a great question, James, and it's definitely something we hear a lot from people who are thinking about getting started with their first e-commerce business. And I actually remember having the same thoughts and assumptions myself, because I think the easy assumption to make is that it would be easier to sell cheaper products than higher priced products. And by the way, the reason the £185,000 price tag has been waved around is because one of our members has just updated us, and he's just closed an order for £185,000 on his Shopify store, a single order, using our home turf advantage model that we'll talk about today. So it can certainly be done. I'm not saying those kinds of orders come in every day, but at a 30% profit margin, do the maths. How many orders like that do you need to replace your current income? So I think that there's three things to consider. Well, first it's the profit margins, right? If you sell higher ticket, higher priced items, it just means you're going to make so much more profit per order. If you're selling, luxury cars, for example, instead of selling a bicycle, you'd need to sell way fewer of those luxury sports cars to get a much higher overall profit, or to get the same profit than you would to sell hundreds and hundreds of those cheaper bikes, right? So the other thing is then the volume of sales. The lower ticket items, if you're selling the cheap £1 products that you used in your example, or £20, £30 products, I'd still consider those fairly low price, low ticket. Think how many more of those you're going to need to sell. The volume of sales you'll need to achieve to make the same revenue as selling maybe one of those higher value, high ticket items. It's like you got this bucket that you're trying to fill up with your ideal income, and you're kind of teaspooning in the profit with a teaspoon, and it's going to take a long time to fill that bucket, versus having like a huge dessert serving spoon or something, and you can just pour heaps of profit into the bucket, right? Every order puts so much more profit into the business. The other thing is the customer experience. Remember, with that high volume of the low priced orders that you will need to have, you're going to be inundated with customer requests. You're going to have customers asking, when's their order going to arrive? Can they get a refund? They made a mistake. I've been waiting for 2 days for a response to my email. And meanwhile, your inbox is filling up with these customer complaints and requests, and it's stressing you out as a business owner. And you're starting to question, why did I start this business in the first place? I started it for freedom, to get away from my job, to free up my time. And I've found myself with more work to do now than I had previously. If anything, life was probably easier before I started a business like this. So you've got to think really carefully around, what's the ladder that you're climbing? As they say, is the ladder even up against the right building? Because if you climb it and you get success with that model, you might realize the whole time you were on the wrong ladder or the wrong building. So with high ticket items, it often means that, yes, you might need a bit more trust from your customers, but it's such a personal sales experience and sales process for them, because it can be, they can pick up the phone to your company, and you or your virtual assistant can answer the phone, can help them through their order, can take the time, can spend 10 minutes on the phone with them, helping them to build that trust and close that sale. And it just makes the whole process so much more of a positive experience for the customer, versus the low ticket, high volume approach, where you'll see stores hide their phone details, because the last thing they want is to be inundated with customers calling them about products that are £19 or $19, and just being bombarded with unnecessary customer service requests. And so they hide it, and therefore that's why things like bad reviews build up online, or they get an inbox full of complaints. So several reasons there. as to why we've decided that it makes sense to sell higher value products. I'm not saying you have to sell every product for £185,000, but that's just an example of what is possible.
Yeah, it's an amazing case study that we came across when the member got in touch to let us know about this sale. And so we thought, let's talk about it, because when people join, the majority of people do assume that it's going to be way easier to sell cheaper products rather than high ticket products. But the advantages for when you sell high ticket products are massive. I think the problem comes from, I think we over-index or we over-emphasize the importance on the customer decision. And when we're considering what to purchase, our initial assumption is all based on how easy will it be for a customer to decide to buy. And when you think of it in terms of that, you think, well, low ticket must be the right way to go because it's going to be a lot less of a decision-making process for your customer to purchase from you. And you kind of over-index that importance and decide that that must be the most important metric to go after. Because if a customer can decide quickly, surely you'll make more money. But in reality, when you actually buy these, when you actually set up these businesses, you realize the things that you really should be optimizing for is the amount of profit you make per order, the amount of lower amount of volume of sales you need to make to generate the amount of profit you need. And you need to actually emphasize the customer experience that you're able to provide. And to shatter the myth as well, what I found out is that selling high ticket items versus low ticket, customers can still be just as demanding and still put just as much thought into purchasing a £20 or £30 product as they do for higher ticket items. And that only happens when you get into the niche, you start selling products. And when I was selling low ticket items, I was still really being hounded by questions about the product, even when it was very cheap. So you might get a nasty surprise if you go into like low ticket, thinking that customers are just going to be making these impulse decisions, sending you money without asking you questions. It just wasn't the case when I went into it.